Go.
Good morning, everybody. This is Grandma Diane's story time, and we've changed locations today just because it is so noisy down in my house. We're doing a little project, so it's very noisy. Feels good to get up here where it's quiet. So, just a couple things I want to talk about today before we get started. First of all, we had lots and lots of people comment yesterday about the new setup, and they liked it. Today we're going to try that again. We're just in a different location, but we will try that again. Also, I've done some different settings on my phone, and maybe that's going to help with the blurriness a little bit too. We'll see. We'll give it a try. And thirdly, or fourthly, or wherever we are, I wanted to say that this COVID-19 stuff is for real, and that we all need to continue staying home and staying safe and doing what we are doing to protect ourselves from the virus. So please remember to do that. Let's go. Today's story is going to be Otis and the Scarecrow, and it's written by Loren. Give me a second, I'm going to move spots, and here we go. Tap me on the shoulder when it's good.
You're good.
Otis and the Scarecrow. #1 New York Times best-selling Loren Long. Otis and the Scarecrow. Oh, Otis and the Scarecrow. Loren Long. Wow. It was summer when the Scarecrow first came to the farm where the friendly little tractor named Otis lived. Back when the corn was tall and Otis recalled how the crows had scattered at first. They wanted nothing to do with the Scarecrow, which made the farmer happy. Otis was happy. A new friend had come to live on the farm. But when Otis went to welcome him, the Scarecrow didn't smile or say hello. He just stood there, a sour look on his face, staring at the cornfield. After a while, Otis left him alone. When the farmer went by to greet the Scarecrow once again, he didn't smile or say hello. He just stood there, that sour look on his face, staring at the cornfield. The animals didn't know what to think. Who was this new? The horse curled up his lip at the Scarecrow's musty smell. The ducks pointed at his tattered clothes. The little calf and the puppy were frightened by him. Finally, the bull snarled, huffed, and turned away, and the Scarecrow stood there alone. Summer passed, and by the crows came back around. They perched, picked, and pecked at the Scarecrow. Otis noticed that the Scarecrow didn't shoo them away. He just stood there with that sour look on his face, staring off at the cornfield. Otis puffed a soft sigh and turned to catch up with his animal friends. Autumn eventually arrived. The days grew shorter and cooler. Harvest time had left the fields bare except for the plump pumpkins dotting the fields orange. Otis began pulling wagons filled with children, eager to pick out a pumpkin to carve into a jack-o'-lantern. The farm looked but Otis loved the changing seasons, and he worked and played as hard as ever. Puttedly chuff. It was splendid time on the farm for being together with family and friends. Wow, those are big pumpkins. The cool air drifting through the hills made the animals more rambunctious than ever. A simple game of follow the leader turned into a reckless race over the rolling hills. A game of hide and seek turned into a rowdy rendition hovering around the rosy, almost playfully circling Otis as he sat counting 1 puff, 2 puff, 3 puttity 4 chuff. When Otis tuckered out from all the games, he headed up the hill to the apple tree. His frisky friends would join him, and then they were all sitting together. Otis would challenge everyone to a different game. The quiet game. The quiet game is a contest in which everyone must stay quiet and still. No sounds, no laughing, no snorting, quacking, giggling, or the player who stays quiet the longest wins. Otis knew the animals loved playing any game. Each one that challenged them to sit still, even the one that challenged them to sit still. To start the game, he would surge his engine to get everyone's attention, take a deep breath of air, and let out a long, soft putt, puff, puttity shh. Otis would sit quietly and look over the farm. There was Mud Pond full with autumn rains. There were the plump pumpkins dotting the fields orange. There were the shocks of corn fodder all in a row. And there was a scarecrow, all alone, staring sternly at the empty cornfield. Look at all the animals are up here under the tree. The puppy was always the first to lose the quiet game. He just couldn't sit still. The bull would twitch his nose, which made the calf giggle. This made the bull chuckle with a snort. The bull's snort would amuse the ducks, and their bottoms would wiggle as they held back their giggles. The sight of the ducks' wiggling bottoms would amuse the horse so much that he would roll on the ground, neighing with laughter. At this, the ducks would quack out loud, and soon everyone would be laughing, snorting, quacking, and giggling. This left Otis the winner, big grin on his face as he sat under the apple tree with his friends. That sounds like a fun. One day a cold rain set in. Otis and the animals ran for cover under the apple tree. They huddled together for warmth as Otis looked over the farm. There was the overflowing mud pond. There were the shiny wet pumpkins and the soaked corn shocks all in a row. And there, swaying back and forth in the cold wind and rain, was the Scarecrow. Otis couldn't take his eyes off of him. He thought about how the Scarecrow must feel. He looks pretty lonely there, doesn't he? All by himself. Otis stood up. He marched down the hill, putt, puff, puttity chuff, and crossed into the empty cornfield. Without hesitation, Otis chuffed and puffed straight up to the Scarecrow. Back under the apple tree, the animals watched intently. Up to the Scarecrow. Otis looked up into the painted eyes of the Scarecrow and smiled. The Scarecrow didn't smile back. He just stared off at the empty cornfield as always. The two of them stood quietly in that great big field as the wind and rain battered them. Then Otis turned his body around and backed up alongside the Scarecrow, and with a chuff, he sat down right next to him. Suddenly, the little calf and the puppy scampered down the hillside, crossed into the cornfield, and curled up right next to Otis. Gradually, the cow and horse ambled down the hillside. Before long, the ducks waddled their way down too. And finally, the big bull sauntered down into the field, joining the others. Otis surged his engine to get everyone's attention. took in a deep breath of air, and let out a long, soft, puddly shh. Otis and the animals sat quietly. Until the puppy couldn't sit still another minute. The bull snorted on the calves' ears, and the ducks wiggled their bottoms, and soon everyone was giggling, quacking, laughing, and even puffing. Everyone except the Scarecrow, of course, who never uttered a sound. Yet, as Otis watched, he couldn't be sure, but he thought he might have seen the Scarecrow smile. Either way, Otis thought the Scarecrow didn't look so lonely anymore, surrounded by his friends. The end. Wow, that was an amazing story, wasn't it? Otis and the Scarecrow by Loren Long. And I understand that there's quite a bunch of Otis books, not just Otis and the Scarecrow. So that might be something you want to look into if you're looking for some new books along the way. Okay. Well, that's our story time for today, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again. Tomorrow we have another Ted Arnold book picked out. And Ted Arnold books, as you know, are always pretty fun. They're the no more jumping on the bed and no more water in the tub type stories. This one is a little bit different though, but we'll read that one tomorrow. And if you remember, just a few days ago, we read a book about even monsters need haircuts. That's kind of how I feel today, like the monster that needs the haircut. How many of you are having the same problems with having to stay home and not being able to get a haircut? Yeah, isn't that the truth? Okay, well, that's all for today. We will see you tomorrow with the Ted Arnold book. And it's really cold out today, but you still could dress up nice and warm and get outside and get some exercise. That'll help keep you healthy and strong. Bye for now.